Well, from Seattle to Mexico, soon pieces of pottery and other household items thousands of years old will be headed back home. Facing Race reporter Sharon Yu joining us now with the return effort that's happening around this. Sharon.
Well, Joyce, it's approximately 35 pieces of pottery and ancient artifacts that's been found in Seattle, and the Mexican consulate is working with Homeland Security to make sure those items return to their rightful owner, which is the country of Mexico.
In unsuspecting packaging at the Mexican consulate in Seattle sat artifacts estimated to be thousands of years old.
These things, they were Mexican before Mexico was Mexico.
The different pieces of pottery and figurines caught the eyes of Homeland Security investigations when the most recent owner turned them in, sure that they were important historically, unsure how.
These things have been passed along down from family to family. These things have obviously been on the earth for almost 2,000 years. They've changed hands several times. And sometimes good citizens come forward and say, we've come into these things and we're not supposed to have these things and we'd like to make it right.
Head Consul Hector Godoy says he can probably guess how ancient items from Mesoamerica ended up in Seattle.
I think there was more of a laissez-faire attitude to archaeological pieces in the early 1900s. Which meant that many of these very valuable pieces had actually left Mexico and come into the hands of private individuals.
In fact, this article from the Sunday News Tribune in 1960 confirms 2 Lakewood explorers find artifacts on Mexican trip, and that Arnold Snell brought back the items from remote Chiapas province in Mexico. Repatriating these pieces, Godoy says, is a step forward for Mexico to reckon with its own violent past with indigenous folks.
We now recognize there was an incredible degree of violence that was enacted on our indigenous population through the process of the conquistadors.
By sending slices of history back home, Godoy says he hopes questions will be answered about the time in Mexico before it was Mexico.
Bring back and fix some of the problems that were actually present in the past, which was there was a high degree of willful destruction of Mesoamerican artifacts during Mexico's history. So being able to recover these artifacts begins to heal that gap.
Even though Homeland Security was involved in this investigation, no criminal charges have been filed.
And explain to us why Homeland Security was involved in this.
Yeah, so it's kind of like standard procedure when something like this involving potential items that require repatriation, they get involved to make sure that it didn't involve any criminal smuggling for the benefit of private collectors. But of course, that was not the case in this story.
Sharon, thank you.
Thanks, Joyce.
So interesting.